المرسلين وعلى آله وصحابته أجمعين سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم سبحانك لا فهم لنا إلا ما فهمتنا إنك أنت الجواد الكريم وقل رب زدني علما. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. لا يستوي القاعدون من المؤمنين غير أولي الضرر والمجاهدون في سبيل الله بأموالهم وأنفسهم فضل الله المجاهدين بأموالهم وأنفسهم على القاعدين درجة وكلا وعد الله الحسنى وفضل الله المجاهدين على القاعدين أجرا عظيما درجات منه ومغفرة ورحمة وكان الله غفورا رحيما. صدق الله مولانا العظيم. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions more specifics regarding jihad, and also after mentioning the risk of wrongly accusing someone of not being a Muslim and taking life and property. So perhaps some might have felt, this is a very risky proposition, going out and facing people and in the battlefield, and perhaps resulting in the killing of people who are not supposed to be killed. And so here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala further elucidates that the fact is that moving out in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and fighting in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when that is called for, this is not to be there should be no taraddud, there should be no hesitation whatsoever, and move forward, because there's a great reward and a great virtue for that, and a great responsibility and accountability as well. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لا يستوي القاعدون من المؤمنين غير أولي الضرر والمجاهدون في سبيل الله بأموالهم وأنفسهم. They cannot be the same. Those people who sit behind and don't participate in the campaign of jihad from among the people, even though they are the people of Iman, who are not having some valid excuse. For example, they're crippled, they're blind, they're sick, or whatever. They have a valid Sharia excuse. They cannot be the same as those among the people of Iman who struggle and strive in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with themselves and with their persons, with their valuables and with their own persons. In other words, putting their wealth at risk and even their own lives at risk. فَضَّلَ اللَّهُ الْمُجَاهِدِينَ بِأَمْوَالِهِمْ وَأَنفُسِهِمْ عَلَى الْقَاعِدِينَ دَرَجَةً. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has elevated and given more virtue and given a higher status to those mujahideen, those people who struggle and go out in the path of Allah and fight in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and struggle in His path with their wealth and with their persons upon those who sit behind a daraja, a station or a position or a step. And of course those steps would be in the hereafter, and the steps in the hereafter are quite magnanimous. Between each step, perhaps the distance of the heavens and the skies. So they're going to be highly elevated. وَفَضَّلَ اللَّهُ الْمُجَاهِدِينَ عَلَى الْقَاعِدِينَ أَجْرًا عَظِيمًا. And further elucidating and further emphasizing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has favored those mujahideen, those people who strive in the path of Allah, upon those who sit behind a great reward. دَرَجَاتٍ مِنْهُ. These are the stations and elevations which come minhu, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these are not stations granted by the worldly and of the world, but these are stations granted by Allah Rabbul Alameen in the hereafter, stations and statuses no one can imagine until one reaches there. وَكَانَ اللَّهُ غَفُورًا رَحِيمًا. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very kind and forgiving, very merciful and very forgiving. Now, something should be understood here is that sometimes jihad, or going out in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is a fard kifaya, meaning if some will stand up for this issue and being sufficient for it, then it will be sufficient for the rest of the ummah, and the rest of the ummah or the rest of the community is not responsible for this. However, if there is not a sufficiency in those who stand up for this issue and go forth, then and there's a deficiency there, then the entire nation stands accountable in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there are instances when jihad is fard kifaya. There is a campaign in which a certain amount of individuals are necessary. Not everyone is necessary. So here, this is what this refers to. So those who stay behind cannot be equal to those who went forward. Now we have another situation, for example, in the Ghazwa Tabuk, now in Surah Tawbah, this was the situation. Everyone was required to move forward. Every able-bodied man was required to move forward. This is called a Nafar al-Am. And when the Imam of the Muslims gives this call, then nobody is to stay behind except those who actually have a Sharia excuse. So that's not the case here. Here the case of having higher degrees. Otherwise that's, as we saw in Surah Tawbah, those who were following, there was quite a huge, blame that was placed on those who without excuse remained behind. So it's also interesting that in connection to this ayat, when this ayat was revealed, Abdullah ibn Maktoum, who was blind, so when this ayat was revealed, that those who struggle in the way of Allah with their wealth and their persons cannot be compared to those who stay behind. In other words, they're going to be in deficiency. So he was really worried, okay, well, I can't go, and so I'm not going. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed except for those rather than those that are otherwise have a Sharia excuse. So such as him, and of course, innamal a'malu binniyat, the actions will be rewarded according to the intention. So his intention was definitely he would have joined that campaign had he been able to. So similarly, if someone is not able to participate in such campaigns and such activities because of the Sharia excuse, he should have intention that had he had the wherewithal and the ability to do so, then definitely